Stand on any Great Lakes beach and the water tells you nothing. A mild inland sea, sailboats, gulls, a horizon you could print on a postcard. Under it sits a fifth of all the fresh water on the surface of the earth, and almost none of it is empty. 11 fish live down there, bigger, older, and stranger than the surface will ever admit. And we are not ranking them by which one could hurt you. We are ranking them by how completely each one has slipped out of the picture you carry of these lakes. Number 1 is a living dinosaur. A fish that was here before the country had a name, armored like something from before the ice, that we nearly erased and never quite did. Still down there tonight. We'll get to it. First, the water starts to talk. Number 11, the freshwater drum. On a still night in Lake Erie, the water hums. A low, pulsing, drumming sound comes up through the hull of a quiet boat, and people blame it on the motor, or the waves, or the shoreline, or nothing at all. It is a fish. The male freshwater drum makes that sound on purpose, vibrating a set of muscles against its own swim bladder. A call it has been making in these lakes since long before anyone was here to mishear it. Up north they call it the thunder pumper, the grunter, the croaker, and along the shore the old story is that the lake itself is talking on warm nights. And it is no minnow. New York's record drum came out of Oneida Lake on the 16th of June, 2017 at 36 pounds. The world record out of Tennessee topped 50. They live up to 70 years down on the bottom, grinding zebra and quagga mussels open with a plate of teeth set in their throats, and the more invasive mussels choke these lakes, the bigger the drum grow on them. It carries a sense line that runs all the way to the tip of its tail, so it feels you coming through the water long before you'd ever feel it. Native people once strung the drum's ear stones, round, white, an inch across, into necklaces, which means this fish has been known here for a very long time. It is the only creature on this list that announces itself, and it stays hidden anyway, because a sound with no body is the easiest thing in the world to ignore. The lake has been talking to you your whole life. You just decided it was the wind. Number 10, the channel catfish. Everyone knows a catfish. That's the problem. The picture in your head is a farm pond and a fish about the size of a shoe, and you carry that picture right up to the edge of a Great Lake without ever updating it. Then Lake Ontario hands one up. The New York State Record Channel, catfish, set in 2017, ran about 35 pounds. And in the right deep water they reach 40, even close to 60. They live on the bottom, whiskers reading the black. And a channel catfish does not just taste with its mouth. Its entire body is covered in taste buds, tens of thousands of them, from the barbels to the tail. In the lightless deep water where it hunts, the fish is essentially a swimming tongue, tasting the whole lake at once. You, the bait, the current, everything, long before you would ever see it. You don't fail to see the channel catfish. You fail to imagine it at full size. Your own memory shrank it, and it grew up down there in the dark you never picture. If this is the kind of thing you'd want to know is holding still under the water you swim in, the next one of these videos will reach you a lot faster if you subscribe. That's really all it does. Keeps a light on this stretch of water with me. Number 9, the common carp. Here is the most seen monster in the Great Lakes, and, for the exact opposite reason, one of the most invisible. You have watched 1,000 of them. Golden backs rolling in the shallows, tails waving out of the weeds off every marina from Toledo to Green Bay. They came from Germany, 345 fish imported by the U.S. Fish Commission in 1877, then stocked into water all across the country through the 1880s as a food fish that nobody, in the end, wanted to eat. Now they are in all 5 lakes. Michigan's record common carp weighed 61.5 pounds. They reach roughly 80 pounds and 5 feet long. And they are not harmless just because they're familiar. A big carp feeds by rooting through the bottom, tearing up the plants and stirring the sediment until the water goes cloudy and brown, clouding the shallows that walleye and perch and waterfowl depend on, quietly rebuilding the lake in its own image while nobody watches. You have stood 10 feet from the biggest freshwater fish you may ever be near, one steadily changing the water in front of you, and you filed it under garbage. because contempt does the same work as camouflage. What we're disgusted by, we stop actually seeing. Number 8, the burbot. Now something that looks like it should not be here at all, and always has been. Long as your leg, eel-bodied, a single whisker hanging under the chin, skin like a wet snake, tiny scales, a face somewhere between a catfish and something older. The burbot is the only member of the cod family on Earth that lives its entire life in fresh water, a piece of the ocean left stranded inland when the ancient seas pulled back. Like its saltwater cousins, it spawns in the dead of winter, under the ice, from roughly January through March, dozens of them knotting together into a slow, writhing ball in the black water while the surface above them is frozen solid. A single female can carry more than 1 million eggs. In Lake Superior, they have been found near 1,000 feet down, hiding by day inside sunken wrecks and rock slabs and coming out to hunt in the dark. The Wisconsin record came up through a hole in the ice off the Apostle Islands in February of 2002. 18 pounds and 7 ounces, nearly 38 inches long. Pull one up and it will wrap its whole cold body around your forearm like it's testing you. The people who get past the way it looks call it poor man's lobster and swear the white meat is finer than anything else in the lake. But most never get that far. It looks so wrong for a cold northern lake that people simply decide it isn't native. And a fish nobody believes belongs is a fish nobody bothers to count. Everything above this line you could catch and still explain away. From here down, the fish stop fitting the story we tell about these lakes at all. Number 7, the bigmouth buffalo. The monster here isn't size, though it has that too. 4 feet, 65 to 80 pounds. The monster here is time. The bigmouth buffalo is a heavy, humpbacked, dull gold fish that most anglers curse and throw straight back. A trash fish. A nothing. Then in 2019, scientists sectioned the tiny ear bones of buffalo pulled from Minnesota water and ran the carbon inside them, and the numbers came back impossible. One of them was 112 years old. Later in Saskatchewan, they found one at 127. These fish had been assumed to live about 26 years. The truth was more than 4 times that. Whole populations turned out to be 85, 90% made up of individuals over 80, fish that were already old when the dams went up in the 1930s, that haven't successfully bred in half a century, still cruising the shallows every spring. And here's the strangest part. They don't weaken with age the way we do. The oldest ones tested had stronger immune systems and lower stress than the young ones. Their bodies barely register the decades passing at all. In the shallows of Lake Erie, a fish that tails past your boat this summer may have been alive before the First World War, may have been swimming when Detroit was building its first assembly lines, and right now they are being shot out of the water by the thousands, at night, with bows in a fishery that in most places has no limit and no rules. 100-year-old animals killed for sport and left on the bank, and nobody counting the loss. Because you cannot look at a fish and see 100 years, so we called it garbage, and we never once checked. Number 6, the flathead catfish. Now the newcomers arrive. The flathead is not from here, not native to the Great Lakes Basin, full stop. It's a river giant out of the south, with a broad flat spade of a head and a lower jaw that juts out past the upper. And unlike the other catfish, it wants its meat alive. It doesn't scavenge. It hunts, and it can pass 100 pounds. Michigan's record flathead came out of Plum Creek in Monroe County in 2025. 64 pounds, 45 inches long, and the same enormous fish had been netted and released 5 years earlier. Already huge, already there while nobody was looking. They've been pushing north since the 1990s, through Lake Erie, into Lake St. Clair, up into Huron. Swimming long distances fast, one of the reasons they top so many least wanted lists. And in 2024, they turned up spawning in the Thames River in Ontario. Researchers there say the same thing warming these lakes is opening the door. Water that used to be too cold to hold a southern predator is warming into exactly what it needs. They arrived so recently the mental map hasn't caught up. So an angler pulls up a 5-foot predator that the record books say shouldn't exist here, shrugs, and logs it as a channel cat, because the map in his head still says nothing that big lives in this water. 3 predators remain, and each one is harder to explain than the last. Because the last three don't just live in these lakes, they own the parts of them we can't reach. Number 5. The chinook salmon. Here's a fish that has no business in freshwater at all. The chinook, the king salmon, is a Pacific Ocean predator, the largest salmon there is, engineered by evolution for cold saltwater currents thousands of miles from here. It is a fish built to run so hard it can strip every foot of line off a reel and keep going. In 1967, managers dropped them into Lake Michigan to eat down another invader, and the king didn't just survive the experiment, it conquered it and built a sport fishery now worth billions of dollars along the shore. The Great Lakes record is just under 48 pounds, taken off Ludington on the 7th of August, 2021, the largest king ever pulled from any of these lakes. And here's the part everyone forgets. More than half of them, around 54%, are now born wild. No hatchery, no stocking truck. An ocean fish is spawning entirely on its own in the middle of the North American continent, running up the rivers, then dying in the current within about 2 weeks of spawning, exactly the way it would have on a Pacific coast it will never see. We think of it as a thing we put there, a stocked fish, a managed fish, a fish we control, and we stopped watching it right at the moment it quietly went feral. From here on, these are the fish built to hunt, and the reason you have never met one is the same reason they're still at the top of this water. Number 4. The muskellunge. The muskie is the apex ambush predator of the Great Lakes, and its entire life is an argument against ever being seen. Anglers call it the fish of 10,000 casts. You can work for it for years and never once feel it hit. The people who chase them will tell you that you don't fish for a muskie, you hunt it, and most of them lose. It hangs motionless in the weed lines, a torpedo the color of shadow with pale bars down its flanks that break its outline into the water behind it, and it takes prey up to 2/3 of its own body length. It will pull a duck off the surface of the water and swallow it whole. The biggest ones grow in exactly the water people least suspect, the cold, clear Great Lakes bays and the tributaries feeding them. The Great Lakes record ran 58 pounds and 59 inches out of Lake Bel Air in Antrim County on the 13th of October, 2013. The all-tackle record, 67.5 pounds, goes all the way back to a Wisconsin lake in 1949. It isn't hidden by depth. It isn't hidden by disbelief. It's hidden by sheer rarity of contact. The largest hunter in the shallows is the one you are least likely in your whole life to ever lay eyes on. And it would very much prefer to keep it that way. If you've ever pulled something up off one of these lakes that you couldn't put a name to, tell me which lake down in the comments. I read those. 2 fish remain. Both of them live where you cannot follow. Number 3. The lake trout. The lake trout is the old giant of this system, and the record, near 102 pounds, is only a rumor of what they once were. A century ago, the upper Great Lakes gave up nearly 15 million pounds of lake trout a year to commercial nets. Then it collapsed, and part of what broke it was a mouth. The sea lamprey, a jawless, eel-shaped thing from the Atlantic that swam in through the shipping canals, clamps a ring of teeth onto the side of a trout, rasps a hole through it, and drinks it alive. One lamprey kills about 40 pounds of fish in its life. At their peak, they were killing over 100 million pounds a year, and 85% of the trout left in the water carried their round scars. But some trout live where even that couldn't follow. There is a form of lake trout most people who've spent their whole lives on Superior have never even heard named: the cisco. A fat, oily, deep-dwelling fish found nowhere on Earth but the bottom of that one lake. Its flesh runs up to 85% fat, nearly useless to eat, which is its own kind of armor. And it holds down where the pressure and the cold and the dark keep almost everything else out. Ciscoets have been collected near 1,330 feet down, the deepest any fish has ever been taken in the Great Lakes, and down there they are the top predator of a world we can barely reach. It does not need us to know it exists, and mostly, we don't. There is an entire layer of hunter beneath these lakes, under the last of the light, that you will never once stand in. Number 2 isn't even in the lakes yet. That's the whole problem. Number 2, the invasive carp. This is the only monster on the list you might still keep out, And it ranks this high precisely because we are losing. Silver and bighead carp run to 4 feet and 100 pounds, and each one strains up to a fifth of its own body weight in plankton out of the water every single day, eating the very base of the food web out from under everything else in the lake, the perch, the walleye, the young of every native fish. In parts of the Mississippi, they are already more than half of all the fish in the water by weight. And the silvers do something no fish that size should be able to do. Startled by the vibration of a boat motor, they launch, 10 feet into the air, a wall of 40 and 50 and 60-pound bodies, breaking the arms and the noses of the people in the boat. They have climbed the river all the way to the doorstep of Lake Michigan. One was caught just 9 miles from the lake, past the electric barriers built to stop them, back in 2017. The leading edge now sits within roughly 47 miles, held back by a single choke point in a Chicago canal that engineers are still fighting over how to seal. And a cousin is already through a side door, grass carp, found now in every Great Lake but Superior, confirmed breeding on their own in the Sandusky River, which empties straight into Lake Erie. There is a barrier, so we tell ourselves the door is shut. The lock is being tested every single night, and one gate is already open. And beneath all of it, older than every fish we've named, older even than the argument about who belongs here, number one has been waiting since before there was anyone to keep anything out. Number 1. The lake sturgeon. It is the largest fish in the Great Lakes and the oldest living thing in them. 7 feet, sometimes 8. 200 to 300 pounds of muscle wrapped in 5 rows of bony plates, with a shark's tail sweeping behind it, and a face that hasn't needed to change in a very long time, because its lineage runs back roughly 150 million years. This animal shared the water with the dinosaurs, and it outlasted them. They live 100 years, some of them 150. And every spring, like the salmon, the old ones climb back up the exact same rivers where they were born to spawn, following a map written into them across geological time. In 2021, a research crew on the Detroit River lifted one that weighed 240 pounds and measured 6 feet 10 inches, with a girth close to 4 feet around. A female that had most likely hatched around 1920, when Detroit was the 4th largest city in America, and had been down there under the freighters and the bridges and the whole roaring century of the place, through every single year since. It watched all of it go by from underneath, and we very nearly erased it. For decades they were killed as a nuisance, torn out of the nets and stacked on the shore, until someone realized the meat and the eggs were worth money, and then we killed them for that instead. Dams cut them off from the rivers where they breed. The Great Lakes population fell to something like 1% of what it once was, so few that today the fish is listed as threatened or endangered across much of its range. Not gone. 1%, still running up the same rivers their ancestors climbed before those rivers had names, still turning over the same gravel, still down there right now underwater you have swum in. This is what the whole list has been circling. The sturgeon was never lost to the deep, or to disbelief, or to rarity. It was lost to memory. It never actually left. We just stopped telling the story. And a fish nobody tells stories about becomes a fish nobody sees, even when it is 200 pounds and drifting directly beneath the boat. So here's what this list is really about. Not fear. None of these 11 are hunting you. Most of them will let you swim over the top of them your whole life and never once give themselves away. It's about a place that looks finished, paved and mapped and photographed and safe, sitting on top of water we never actually emptied. Right now, tonight, a cisco is holding 1,000 feet down in the Black of Superior. A muskie is lying dead still in a weed line off somebody's cottage dock, waiting for something to move. And on the bottom of the Detroit River, a fish older than the country turns slowly in a current it has held for 100 years. In no hurry, going nowhere, waiting. The way it was here long before us, and the way it fully intends to be here long after. If you like this one, YouTube thinks there's another one already on your screen you're going to like just as much.